Hello, this is cjhoyle. Today is Friday, June the 10th, 2022, and welcome to day 7 of my Grand River solo canoeing adventure. So it's 6:05 a.m. and I spent the evening last night camped here at the Sun Retreats Cayuga campground, and it was a relatively eventful night last night because just as I was signing off, a big thunderstorm erupted, which included some pretty heavy rain and some very strong winds. And the winds got so strong that the canoe actually got picked up and moved a couple of meters. The storm only lasted for about an hour, and after that the rain kind of tapered off, and it ended up being a fairly peaceful night. And of course all my stuff was inside the tent and stayed nice and dry, so nothing is damaged. And I did get fairly chilly last night though, so that's why I'm wearing my jacket. But now that I'm up and about, it's time to head over to the bathroom building so I can brush my teeth and get ready for the morning. So it's 6:55 a.m., the canoe is fully loaded, and I'm ready to get inside and begin my journey further down the Grand River. My route today will take me past the community of Cayuga as I continue traveling further downstream. My destination for this evening is the Byng Island Conservation Area, which is across the river from Dunnville. Before arriving at my campsite, I'll have one short portage to do. So things have warmed up a bit since I woke up this morning, and the weather forecast is calling for a nice sunny morning with a chance of showers this afternoon. And as the mist rises off the water, I can see the water tower up ahead for the community of Cayuga. You can see some big birds flying overhead up here. I think they might be osprey. Things seem to be beautifully calm and still this morning. And before I get to Cayuga, up ahead here I've got an old railway bridge to paddle underneath of. This bridge is built for a railroad called the Canada Airline Railway, which is a branch of the Great Western Railway. In 2018, this old bridge was adapted for pedestrians and bikes to use as part of the Cayuga Grand Vista Trail. The Canada Airline Railway opened in 1873, back in the days when the term airline had an entirely different meaning. An airline was a railroad that followed a straight path, which was typically built as a faster alternative to a more windy or less direct existing route. There's nothing quite like going paddling first thing in the morning on water that's perfectly still as the sun comes up. Throughout this vacation, I've been waking up every morning at 5:45 a.m., and it's totally worth it for mornings like this. So just behind those trees over there is the Haldimand community of Cayuga, which I visited on the second last day of my bike tour around Lake Erie. And on that trip, I also rode across this bridge here, which is the Talbot Street Bridge. So this bridge is built in 2014, but it replaced an old historic metal bridge, which was 90 years old at the time, built in 1924. So there's a small trailer park here in Cayuga, and I can see that we're now back on a part of the river which has motorboats. Up ahead, peeking through the trees, I can see the blades of a Siemens 2.3 megawatt wind turbine, which I expect I'll be seeing a lot of today because there are 67 of those, which are part of the Grand Renewable Wind Project. There are lots of islands along this section of the river, so many different choices of paths that I can take through them. Have I mentioned that it's a really beautiful morning yet? And there I can see a motorboat out on the river. First one of those that I've seen for the morning, and first one that I've seen for a couple of days. So the time is now 8 a.m. and I've been dilly-dallying a bit this morning, so I've only paddled a little bit more than 4 kilometers, but I think it's a good time for me to now stop and have some breakfast. If you've been following along with this series, you won't be surprised to hear that my breakfast this morning is campsite overnight oats with some orange juice to drink. So here's a closer look at some of those wind turbines. I've always felt that wind turbines are a beautiful enhancement to the gorgeous countryside of our province, but even if you don't appreciate how they look, you gotta love the renewable power that they generate. So I'm noticing that the wind has picked up a fair bit from when I started this morning, and as you can see from the ripples on the water, the wind is behind me, so not only do I have the current helping me today, but I also have the wind helping me too. Up ahead here on the left, I can see some buoys in the water, which I assume are part of a water skiing slalom course. There's a better look at the slalom course from behind. I've certainly been noticing a lot more homes built alongside the river today. So the time is now 9:30, and I paddled 11 kilometers so far today. Up on top of these hydro poles, I can see some osprey nests. I don't think there's anybody home right now. So over here on the left, I'm paddling past another seasonal campground. I believe this one is called Willow Way Park. Well, the river's become very wide again, but I've still got the wind behind me helping me get to my destination. I can see a tree house built up in that tree there. Over on the left, I'm just paddling past another trailer park built here on the river. It looks like quite a big park. It's called the Grand River Park Bridge Cottage and RV Resort. So the time is now 10:30 a.m. and I paddled 16 kilometers so far today. My total paddling distance today should only be about 27 kilometers, so I'm more than halfway there. Over on the left side of the river there, I can see some cars driving on Haldimand Road 17, and at the moment I'm actually paddling straight into the wind. The wind seems to have reoriented itself and now be coming from the north, but the river curves a bit here, so I think if I hug the left shore up ahead, I should be sheltered from the wind. That's a pretty unique looking structure. Looks like it was made out of a whole bunch of old windows. Yet another RV park built here on the river. This one's called Sunnybank Park. It truly is yet another beautiful day to be out here on the water. Over here on the right I can see some cows relaxing in the shade on this sunny day. It seems like these cows are able to graze right up to the edge of the river, and they might even be able to go inside the river a little bit to get a drink when they get thirsty. This is definitely the first time that I've seen this type of animal on this trip. Fish splashing around in there. So the time is now 11:18 and I paddled almost 20 kilometers so far, which means I only have another 7 or so left to go before I arrive at Byng Island Conservation Area. So the time is now 11:45 and I seem to have the wind behind me again, so I'm going to take a break from paddling now and I'm going to make myself some lunch. So I've got a can of tuna here with some mayonnaise, and I'll make a sandwich using this bread here. And I'll probably also have an apple, and if I still have room, I've got lots of granola bars down there to snack on as well. As this boat comes past me on this big, wide, muddy lake, the time is now 12:05, and I paddled 23 kilometers so far today. Way ahead in the distance over there, I can just barely make out the bridge across the river in Dunnville, which is very close to where I'll be camping tonight. Hidden in this marsh here, I can see a pair of large birds, which I believe are sandhill cranes. From what I understand, these birds are quite uncommon in southern Ontario. The only other time I've seen sandhill cranes was 3 summers ago, when a pair of them walked across the road in front of me when I was riding my bike from Cayuga to Dunnville. This old video clip was actually filmed only 8 kilometers away from my current location, which makes me wonder if these are the exact same 2 birds. So up ahead here on the right I can see another seasonal campground, and this one is actually part of Byng Island Conservation Area where I'm going to be staying tonight. Back in 2019 I did a 10-day bicycle tour where I rode my bike around Lake Erie, and on the final night of that trip I actually stayed here at Byng Island Conservation Area. Now this conservation area is actually a pretty big place, and the part of it where I'm going to be camping is further downriver, and I actually will need to go over a portage first before I get there. So across the river from here is the community of Dunnville, which I've visited a number of times in the past, and the Grand River continues straight ahead, but where that bridge is, there's also a dam, so you can't really paddle any further in that direction. But if you want to keep paddling the rest of the way down to Lake Erie, there's a lagoon behind this island here, where there's another dam, but there's a portage route around it. So I paddled inside the lagoon now, and it's nice to get a little break from the wind. The island over to my left is called Byng Island, which is of course what the conservation area is also known as, and the last time that I camped here I actually stayed on Byng Island. So straight ahead there is the dam, and the portage route starts right over here on the right. This portage is about 200 meters long, and most of it is along the park road. The canoe I'm using for this trip is a 16-foot Old Town Penobscot, which I rented from Element Canoes in Hamilton. This canoe is made out of Royalex, and it's actually surprisingly light to carry. So I've now carried the canoe and all my stuff down to the bottom of the portage, and with this final portage of my trip now complete, the canoe now sits in water which is practically the same elevation as the water in Lake Erie. And there's a quick look back at the dam. You can see that it's not a huge elevation difference, maybe 1.5 meters or so. So the place where I'm hoping to camp tonight is just a little bit further down this lagoon in an area of the park called Sulphur Creek. And the reason I say I'm hoping to camp here tonight is because unlike all the other times on this trip when I stayed at a campground and had an advanced reservation, this time I haven't booked anything ahead of time. The Grand River Conservation Authority, who operates this park, has a policy that if you want to make an advanced reservation to stay at one of their parks on the weekend, that you're required to book at least 2 nights at the same time. Of course, I only want to stay here for one night, so that policy really doesn't work for me. In fact, it's quite discouraging for people who like to do active vacations like me. I do understand why they have the rule in place, but I really wish they had some kind of an exception that if you were arriving, by bicycle or by canoe or kayak or something, that they would waive that restriction. So over here on the right is a boat launch, and just beyond here is the Sulphur Creek campground. So there are campsites straight ahead behind those trees. So my plan is to dock the canoe here, and then I can walk over to the office and register for one of these campsites. So I've got the canoe tied and locked to the dock there. Now to head back this way to go and scope out the campsites. So I went and scoped out the various different campsites, and then I walked over here to the park office, and I've now registered for my site of choice. So I'm back here at the canoe now, and because my campsite has direct water access, I'm going to get back inside there, paddle a little bit further down this lagoon, and get out right at my campsite so I can unload my stuff. So here I've arrived at my campsite, number 329. Just see the OPP police boat coming past my campsite. This is my Tim Hortons cup from a couple of days ago where I planted the seeds from the tree. I think I can see a sprout starting to come through down there. So I got the campsite set up pretty quickly after I arrived, and this afternoon I've just been working on doing a couple of chores around the campsite, but the time is now around 4:30. The weather forecast this morning was calling for a chance of showers this afternoon or this evening, but the forecast has now changed and they're no longer expecting any precipitation. So I've decided this evening I'm going to walk into the community of Dunnville so I can have my dinner, and it should be about a 35-minute walk. So to cut down on the walking a little bit, I took a shortcut through this service yard where there's a gate which opens up onto the street, which should take me closer to Dunnville. So I've made it to Rainham Road, and now I'll just follow this road across the bridge into Dunnville. I mentioned my bike tour of Lake Erie earlier, but I've actually ridden along this road behind me on 2 previous bike tours. Strangely, the sidewalk that I'm walking on keeps dead-ending and changing from one side of the road to the other, but anyways, we're almost at the bridge now. So this first bridge here spans the part of the river that's already been lowered by the dam, and of course that's where I'll be paddling tomorrow. And over there I can see the police boat heading back to the boat launch near where I'm camped. So after the first bridge back there, there's a causeway which goes through a bunch of marshland, and up ahead there's the second bridge. And looking further downstream on the river, I can see some wind turbines, and these ones are different from the ones that I was seeing earlier today. These ones are part of a project called Niagara Region, made by a company called Enercon. So I've now made it to the second of the 2 bridges. This one's a lot longer, and just downstream of it is the Dunnville Dam, and it appears that just downstream of the dam is a really popular place for people to go fishing. So here I'm looking back upstream on the Grand, and that land over on the left is Byng Island, near where I'm camping. And next to the dam over here in Dunnville, there's currently a carnival going on. And here I've arrived in downtown Dunnville. There's always something special about a small town with its old, historic streetscape. While I was here in town, I stopped in at Giant Tiger to get some orange juice for my breakfast tomorrow. The first time I visited Dunnville, I stopped for breakfast at this restaurant here called Noel's Diner. The second time I visited Dunnville, I ate at this restaurant here called Merit Room Dining on the Grand. And on my third visit to this community, I'm going to try Deb's Cuisine. The full name of the restaurant is actually Deb's Cuisine on Queen. So for my dinner tonight, I got some Lake Erie perch with fries and coleslaw, and I got some Dad's old-fashioned root beer to drink. Well, that was a really delicious dinner, and I enjoyed my brief visit back here to Dunnville. Now to head back across the bridge and head back to the campsite. So it's 7 p.m. and I've made it back here to the campsite. So now I can prepare my final serving of campsite overnight oats for this trip. So tonight I'm going to forego my routine of having a shower before bed because although this campground does have showers, there aren't any within this section, and the nearest shower building would be quite a long walk, and I've already done quite a bit of walking tonight, so I'm just going to brush my teeth here in the campsite tonight. So over there in the creek I can see a beaver swimming along. And there comes another one. It's kind of rare to see 2 beavers at the same time. Oh, just went underwater. So that will pretty well wrap things up in terms of day 7 of my trip. My total paddling distance today was 26.9 kilometers, and I'm almost done this trip. I only have another 9 kilometers to go tomorrow, so tomorrow will be a pretty short day. And of course, if I was in a hurry, I would have easily been able to combine these 2 days, into one, because I arrived here, probably 1:30 or something. So I certainly could have done, another 9 would have taken me maybe 2 hours and I would have been done. But it's sort of nice having a chance to sort of stop off here and get to see the sights again and, visit Dunnville. Dunnville's a really unique town. The history of Dunnville goes way back to the 1820s. And the history is it's, the dam that's in Dunnville, there's been a dam there, not the same one, but there's always been a dam there since around that same time, the 1820s, because when they built the first Welland Canal, they actually used water from the Grand River to feed the Welland Canal. So they raised the water in Dunnville, and then they used the water from the Grand, actually went through what's called the feeder canal, all the way across to the Welland Canal, and it fed it there. So yeah, that's the community of Dunnville was sort of built around this sort of juncture point of where the water would sort of feed the other canal. And they also had a lock, actually, which you could use if you wanted to sort of work your way up the Grand River. You could take the feeder canal, or you could actually take a lock to get you up to the feeder canal. And I'm hoping to go and see that lock tomorrow. But anyways, I enjoyed my day of paddling today. I have been noticing that my average speed the last couple of days has been sort of slower than it was earlier in the trip. And I don't attribute that to myself getting, out of shape or getting tired or anything like that. I really, I believe it's because of the current. There's been almost no current in the river the last couple of days, where at the beginning of the trip, the current really dominated things. And there were some times when I would be, moving along and like the water would be so shallow that I couldn't really even be paddling, and most of what I was doing was steering. So, without the current, further along here, I definitely feel like I'm working harder, but that's, probably a good way for it to be, that it's easy towards the beginning, and then, after you've sort of warmed up, you're ready for the hard work of actually doing the work of paddling yourself. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed joining me for day number 7 of this trip. If you watched all the way to the end of this video, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.